Once you've determined the type and the amount of fertilizer that your lawn needs by performing a soil test, the next step is to get those nutrients down into the soil so they can work their magic. A broadcast spreader like this M-Pro model from Ewing is often the tool of choice for that job. To make sure that you're applying the proper amount of fertilizer effectively and efficiently, it's important to calibrate your spreader. Here's what you'll need for the calibration: a broadcast spreader, fertilizer, a bucket to weigh your fertilizer in, a push broom, a measuring wheel or a tape measure, a scale preferably accurate to the ounce, landscape flags or marking paint, and those will mark off your test area, and you'll also need a calculator. Begin by determining how much of the fertilizer is needed to cover a 1,000 square foot area. Typically, you will find this information on the manufacturer's bag. You can also check out our fertilizer calculation video for detailed calculation instructions. Since fertilizer granules can vary in size, it's also important to perform this calibration using the actual fertilizer that you plan to spread. Step 1 in the process is to measure the effective swath width of the spreader. Since the spreader is wheel-driven, variations in walking speed will affect the spread of your application. A person with a faster walking pace will have a much wider swath than someone with a slower pace. The important thing to keep in mind is to maintain a consistent speed. You'll need a solid surface like a driveway or a parking lot to set up your test area. This allows you to see where the material falls and makes it easier to clean up. It's important to sweep up the material when you're done to prevent possible runoff into the local water supply or staining of the surface. Add enough fertilizer to the spreader hopper to allow you to make a short run down the test area. Set the spreader to the middle setting and start spreading at your normal walking speed. You'll only need to walk a short distance for this part of the calibration, just enough where you can clearly see a consistent swath on the ground. Now measure the effective width of the swath and make a note of that result. The effective width is the area between the 2 points where the fertilizer begins to thin out in the pattern. When you eventually spread the material, the thin areas on each side of the swath should overlap as you make each pass. This will help prevent the striping that can occur when done incorrectly. Since we want to figure out how much fertilizer is needed to cover 1,000 square feet, the next step is to determine the length of the run needed in our test to equal that area. All you have to do is divide 1,000 by the width of your swath. We have a 10-foot swath, so for our test, we'll need a 100-foot run to equal 1,000 square feet. To simplify our test, we'll cut that distance in half to 50 feet and multiply our final result by 2. Begin by measuring and marking the start and finish lines of the test area, then prepare your spreader. Weigh out a few pounds of fertilizer using your bucket and scale. Make a note of the weight and be sure to subtract the weight of the bucket from your total. With your spreader still on the middle setting, begin your test run across the area that you marked off earlier. Be sure to give yourself enough space to get up to speed before you reach the starting line. Once you hit that line, open up the hopper and continue at a consistent pace. Remember to close the hopper as you cross the finish line. To determine how much material was distributed, weigh the remaining fertilizer in the hopper, then subtract that total from the original amount. Compare this number to the manufacturer's suggested output. If your weight is higher or lower, then adjust your spreader's output and retest until you've reached the desired application rate. Now that your spreader is calibrated, you can be confident that you're applying the appropriate amount of fertilizer to keep your turf healthy and looking great. For more information about the M-Pro broadcast spreader and other landscape or irrigation products, stop by one of our local Ewing branches or visit us online at ewingirrigation.com.